Christ's birth, there on page 3, where we're going to pick up. And I think really we ended Sunday school. Do I have this turned on? So we ended Sunday school, I think around the announcing of Christ's birth to Joseph. Pretty sure that's where I ended. And, Joseph sees Mary now after 3 months. Get over there. Get over there. Get over there. And it's very apparent that she's changed a little bit over the last few months, and she's pregnant, very obvious. He knows he's not the father, but he's not the only one that notices that she's pregnant. Everybody in town knows that she is pregnant. It's only 500 people in the town. It's smaller than Fife Lake. You get a town like that, there are no secrets, none whatsoever. And so Joseph is in a bit of a quandary here, because what do? Do I divorce her? But I don't really want to make her a public example and put her through that, so I'm just going to divorce her privately. But then at the same time, if I divorce her, everybody thinks that this child is mine, and that's not going to look good. And I know this child is not mine, so if I marry her, then that's not going to be good. So he's just in a no-win situation here. And so the angel appears to him in a dream and says, don't worry, Mary was not lying to you when she said this is God's child, Joseph. It is God's child, and you're going to get to help raise this child, so go ahead and take her to be your wife, and just kind of proceed as normal outwardly, where it looks like everything is normal, and just go with the flow. And that's really what he does. So now we come down here to this last paragraph here, where we get to the birth of Jesus. Now this is where our perception changes, because we have a lot of ideas. I think Hollywood and postcards and stuff like that have done a really good job of messing up the story for us and giving us kind of an idea that the Bible doesn't portray. So I just like to mess with people's minds, and so planning on messing with your mind a little bit as we work through this. Notice here, it came to pass in those days that there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed. Now, when it speaks of a taxing, it's not necessarily speaking of a monetary tax like we think of. It's generally speaking more of a census type thing going on. This taxing, it says, was first made when Cyrenius was governor of Syria. So this is kind of a time stamp just to help us mark where in history this is taking place, because prior to the 300s, there wasn't an official date setting of anything. We have, it's year 2025, getting ready to be 2026. They didn't have that at this period of time. You just went based upon who was the ruler and what year of their reign or whatever was kind of how you determined time and how they recorded various events that took place. And we don't officially know the year that Jesus was born. You would think, well, year 0 is when he was born, but there's no such thing as a year 0. And historiographers, archaeologists, kind of pin it down to about 3 to 4 BC, which is kind of interesting that Jesus would be born 4 years before Christ. But exactly when that was and how you determine that is very difficult and confusing, because there is no year 0. You just go from 4 BC, 3 BC, 2 BC, 1 BC, 1 AD, 2, 3. There is no year 0. So it gets really confusing. So when it says that Cyrenius is the governor of Syria, he's just making a timestamp here. He's just letting you know this is when this event took place. That way the people who were at least receiving Luke's account would know, okay, this is approximately when this was going on. And all the world went to be taxed, everyone into his own city. And Joseph also went up from Galilee, out of the city of Nazareth, into Judea, unto the city of David, which is called Bethlehem. because he was of the house and lineage of David, to be taxed with Mary his espoused wife, being great with child. And so it was. Now this is where we need to pay attention. Notice what it says. And so it was that while they were there, the days were accomplished that she should be delivered. Okay, so now notice, when we see the movies or you read the stories, you kind of get this imagery that they're riding along this dirt road in the evening, and they're getting kind of close to Bethlehem, and all of a sudden, the labor pains start. He's like, oh, Joseph, this baby's coming. And so Joseph is frantic, and he's trying to figure out, okay, what do we do? What do we do? And he's like, okay, just take some breaths. And Mary, okay, there's a hotel over here. We'll go to the Super 8, and we'll see if they have a room available. And they knock on the door. No, sorry, we're all booked up. All of our rooms are taken. Okay, well, we'll try the Motel 6 down the road. And so they go, nope, nothing there. And so they go to the, Hampton Inn. There we go. And they go down to the next one. And they say, no, but we do have this storage shed out back, and you can go out there and have your baby there. That is not at all what's going on. Notice, they are already in Bethlehem, and they have been there some time. They could easily have been there up to a month prior to Jesus coming into the world. Because it says, while they were there, the days were accomplished that she should be delivered, and she brought forth her firstborn son. So they were already there sometime before she went into labor. And this taxation, we have no idea how long this took. This could have taken a couple months, because you have to get there. Everybody has to get to the place at the appointed time. Then you have to wait for the Roman soldiers or the publicans to come in, or whoever's going to take up the census and take the records, and they got to go door to door and figure out everybody's genealogy and are you in the right place, and this isn't something that, it's not like you can just go on an app and plug it in, and it's all done and punch it into a computer. This takes a lot of time to do this type of thing. So they've been there for some time. And so she brought forth the firstborn son, wrapped him in swaddling clothes, and laid him in a manger because there was no room for them in the inn. Now, let's go to the next page, and I want to explain what this inn and the manger is. Because a manger is not technically a feeding trough. It is a feeding place, is what it is. It's not necessarily what they eat out of. And an inn is not a reference to a hotel per se. They didn't have hotels that you stayed at. An inn is another name. In our language, we refer to it as an inn. But the Greek word that's used there is the same word that's used for guest chamber. So when Jesus in Luke's gospel tells the disciples to go prepare for the Passover, and they say, well, where do you want us to go take care of it? And well, when you see this guy, and you go and you ask if the guest chamber is available, if the master has need of it. Well, that's referring to the inn. Now, if you notice here in the picture, did you want one so you can follow along? Come on, man. Keep up with the rest of the class. So this is one way a Jewish home would have been set up, a fairly typical Mid-Eastern home. Now, they didn't have a separate barn necessarily, unless you were super, super wealthy. Joseph and Mary are not wealthy by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, it's going to be pointed out when they go finally at the end of Mary's purification to the temple for her to offer the sacrifice. She offers turtle doves, which is what you were permitted under the law to offer if you were dirt poor and couldn't afford an ox or a goat or something like that to offer for your offering. So they lived like this. And so what they had in their home is it was basically one cube structure, and on the kind of main floor when you first come in, you would have on one side, you would have essentially the barn. Inside the house, and I guess some people like to have pet goats and pigs and all those types of things, but your donkey is going to be in the front room of the house. Your sheep, your goats, your chickens, and it's just a mess. And so that's the front room of the house. You cross over kind of the hallway from that, and you have kind of a work area. And then you're going to go up a step or two, and then you're going to have the main living area for the family. You're going to have kind of your stove-type fireplace in there, and then everybody just made their bed on the floor. Everybody slept in the same bed. And that's basically it. Now, a Jewish home had another room above it that would be used for storage, or it was also used as a guest chamber. And so when people were passing through, it would serve as a way to accommodate strangers, to be hospitable to people. And so if you had family come in, that's where family stayed. If people were just passing through town, they were basically at the mercy of the people of the town to put them up in their guest chamber somewhere. And so that's what was going on. So now what we have to keep in mind here, Jewish families are not like the typical American family, where you might have 1.3 children or 2.2 or whatever children per family. They had large families. A family of just 2 or 3 kids probably would have almost been frowned upon. It's like, man, you're just not doing enough for something like that. You're doing something wrong if you just have a handful of kids. That's not what they did. And so they had large families. Do you think Joseph would have been the only son in his family? Probably not. More than likely, this house, the reason there's no room in the inn, this guest chamber for Mary to have her baby, is because not only is Joseph coming with his wife, who else would be coming? All of the family is coming back, and they're going to stay with mom and dad for however long they have to. Probably not exactly where you want to give birth, where everybody's just kind of just putting on a show for everybody. That's not the way they want to do that. So what does Joseph do? He goes down, or somebody goes down to the barn area. They clean it up the best they can, get the animals outside, and that's called the manger. It's the feeding area for the animals. And so this also helps us understand, too, when you go back to the book of Judges, and you remember Jephthah. When he's going to battle, and he makes a vow to God, if you give me the victory, I will sacrifice the first thing that comes out of the door of my house. Now, that was a foolish, rash vow that he made. But he made it. But what he's thinking, he's not thinking his daughter's going to come out. We would think that it's going to be a person that's coming out. But he's thinking, well, once I start getting close and they hear me coming, my pet goat or something is going to come out and greet me or something like that. And that's what he's thinking to sacrifice, because they lived in the house. They could just go in and out at their leisure. So that's what he's thinking. Unfortunately, he got a really bad surprise when he got home and his daughter comes out. So that's what the inn is. It's not a hotel. It's just everybody has been there in Bethlehem. Everybody is staying up in this upper room of the house, maybe one of his brothers, maybe his parents, whatever, and there's just not enough room up there for her to have a baby with everybody else being home. So they go down to the stable, and that's where he's going to be born. Now, the same night, notice here on bottom of page 4, there were in the same country shepherds abiding in the field. Now, all of this is interesting, and this is really important because this is at nighttime. Normally, shepherds would not be out in the field at nighttime, except one season of the year, and that's when the sheep are giving birth. And so this is some of these details that are being given here. The fact that the shepherds are abiding in the field is trying to help us understand what time of the year this is taking place. It says there, shepherds abiding in the field, keeping watch over their flock by night, and lo, the angel of the Lord came upon them, and the glory of the Lord shone round about them, And they were sore afraid. And the angel said unto them, Fear not, for behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy, which shall be to all people. For unto you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, which is Christ the Lord. Now, shepherds were not highly favored in the eyes of the people. They were known to be liars. They were known to be immoral because they're kind of a wandering people. They kind of live out in the tents and kind of whatever they want to do, they do. And in fact, when you read Song of Solomon, and you have Solomon, even though he was a king, he also had a hobby of being a shepherd, just kind of doing what his dad did before being king. And when the Shunammite woman wants to go visit him with his herds, her sister warns her to be careful that she doesn't tarnish her testimony by going and visiting a shepherd among the shepherds, because that could give her a bad rap, going in tent to tent looking for the shepherd. And so these were not highly favored people. They were really kind of the base level of society. And so there was a good chance, it's being announced to them, the Savior has been born, now you need to go see him. And, well, if we go, what's to keep them from kicking us out? What's to make this happen here? Why should we risk it going? They're just going to reject us anyway. So, the angel gives them a sign. This shall be a sign unto you. Ye shall find the babe wrapped in swaddling clothes, lying in a manger. And so this was a sign. They knew when they got there and saw this that they were not going to be rejected. That the people, that things would be okay. It wouldn't be as it was usually. He says, you'll find the babe wrapped in swaddling clothes, lying in a manger. Now, this isn't normal. You're going to find this babe, this mother and her baby, newborn, laying in the barn. Place where the animals have been doing all their business. This is where the baby's going to be. That's not exactly where you would look for a baby. No mother is going to want that, but that's the only option they had, other than being out in the cold. And suddenly, there was with the angel a multitude of the heavenly host, praising God and saying, Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace, goodwill toward men. And it came to pass, as the angels were gone away from them into heaven, the shepherds said one to another, Let us now go, even unto Bethlehem, and see this thing which is come to pass, which the Lord hath made known unto us. And they came with haste, and found Mary, Joseph, and the baby, lying in a manger. And when they had seen it, they made known abroad the saying which was told them concerning this child. Now, again, this is interesting because it calls him a child, and this is the night of his birth. Now, made mention on Sunday, when John the Baptist was circumcised, he's called a child. He's not called a baby, he's called a child. Here, it's the night of Jesus' birth, and he's called a child. Okay, that's going to become important here in just a moment. It says, And all they that heard it wondered at those things which were told them by the shepherds. But Mary kept all these things and pondered them in her heart. And the shepherds returned, glorifying and praising God for all the things that they had heard and seen, as it was told unto them. Now, the interesting thing here is there's a couple things. One, remember when Ruth met Boaz? Boaz owned fields in Bethlehem. These at one point were Boaz's fields. Who was Jesus' great grandfather? Boaz would have been Jesus' great grandfather. That's pretty interesting. And Bethlehem in particular, the sheep that they raised were for the sacrifices. So the lambs that were used for the Passover, the lambs that were used for various sacrifices, they went to Bethlehem to get them. So when they would go get the sheep for the Passover, they were coming down to Bethlehem. So this is about right what's going on here. The picture, exactly where Jesus is going to be born, is in the place where at one point his great grandfather owned the fields, and the fields are where the shepherds are that are raising the sheep that are going to be used for the sacrifices. And here's the very last sacrifice, the last lamb that's going to be needed, is born right here, the one that's going to be the lamb to take away the sin of the world. Now, something else to point out here is, what time of the year is this? Some people make a fuss, say, well, Jesus could not have been born in December or this time of the year because it would have been too cold. That's the winter time. And the sheep wouldn't have been out in the field, and the shepherds wouldn't be out in the field. Actually, that is the time that the shepherds would be out, and that would be the reason they're out at nighttime. I have this article here from Pensacola that you can look at and confirms that. But I also got this too. This is actually from Jerusalem. And it's not a Christian thing at all. It's just it's a blog from one of the, I don't know, would you call it a ranch, a farm? Where you raise sheep and goats, stuff like that? I don't know. Whatever it is. And it says right here how it starts out the article. Winter is kidding and lambing season in the goat pen at however you pronounce that in Hebrew. But this doesn't stop the goats and sheep from working. Each day they go out to the field and play an important role in preventing fires, while our staff looks after the kids and lambs that stay behind in the pen. From late November to late March, there will be a number of births each day. Between 100 and 200 kids and lambs will be born here. And then they continue to go on, and they repeat that several times. So this is the time of year when the shepherds would be out in the field with the sheep while they are lambing. They're out there watching, particularly because it is winter time, and once the lamb is born, they have to get that thing out of the cold and into the warm. So they have to be out in the fields with it. And also, for sacrificial lambs in particular, they can't be bruised or have any broken bones. So what they have to do, because these new baby quadrupeds, as they're getting up trying to learn how to walk, they stumble around, they hop and they leap and they do all these weird things, all things conducive to getting bruises and bumps and broken bones. So they take them as soon as they're born and they wrap them in swaddling clothes to keep them warm and to keep them from running around and getting banged up. So this is exactly what's going on. Jesus is fulfilling that. We wrap kids in swaddles today, but that is a thing we get more from this example. It wasn't so much a thing that they did typically at that period of time, at least in the actual swaddling clothes like you would do for lambs. Now, we come to the weeks following our Lord's birth. And then we'll get this finished up. So now, Jesus was born, then 8 days later he's going to be circumcised, and that's where we're at here with Luke 2:21. And when 8 days were accomplished for the circumcising of the child, notice, again, he's called a child, his name was called Jesus, which was so named of the angel before he was conceived in the womb. Then, going to Matthew's gospel here, now, when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem, saying, Where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen a star in the east, and are come to worship him. Now, the question always comes up, and Baptists, I think, are the only ones that actually fight over this issue. When did the wise men come to see Jesus? They did not come, okay, I can assure you this, they did not come the night he was born. They did not come the night that he was born. And the reason I know that is because, well, you just look here how the chronology works together. It had to have been at or after his circumcision. Those are the only options you got. I tend to think it was probably the night that he got circumcised, but that's just me. But it would have been within a few days of that, maybe a week or so of that. And I'll explain why here in just a minute. But notice, when the wise men come, where do they come? Well, they come from the east, but where do they come to? Where is Jesus when the wise men come? It says it right there at the beginning of the passage. He's in Bethlehem still. Now, what we're going to see here is after the 33 days, and Mary's purified here on the next page, they go from there to Nazareth. And that's where Jesus is going to grow, is in Nazareth. So the timing of the wise men coming had to have been prior to those 33 days. Had to have been. So it was within a month of him being born. And I think very soon, because after the wise men leave, where's Jesus going to go? Well, the wise men leave, and then the same night that the wise men leave, where does Joseph take Mary and the baby? They go down to Egypt. And then they have to come back. And it's at that time then that Mary has finished the time of her purification, and then they go to Nazareth. So notice here. So when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, that's how it begins. So this is it's assuming here within the context and the wording that it is relatively close to the time of Jesus' birth. If he was 2 or 3 years old, I don't think you would say, now when Jesus was born, and use that as a timestamp, a point of reference. Because what he asks them is, when did you see the star? And it says that, and we'll read it here in just a minute, he bases that age based upon when they saw the star. So it had been about 2 years since they had seen the star. So Herod's just covering his bases. He didn't know, neither did the wise men know at that time, at what point, if when they first saw the star he was born, or if they saw the star and that was announcing, we need to get ready and go because he's about to be born. They don't know that yet. They don't find that out until they get there. So we'll keep reading, and I think I'll explain that as we go along. So he says, we see the star in the east, come to worship. Now when Herod the king had heard these things, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And when he had gathered all the chief priests and scribes of the people together, he demanded of them where Christ should be born. And they said unto him, in Bethlehem of Judea, for thus it is written by the prophet, and thou, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, art not the least among the princes of Judah, for out of thee shall come a governor, that shall rule my people Israel. Then Herod, when he had privily called the wise men, inquired of them diligently what time the star appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem, and said, go and search diligently for the young child. And when ye have found him, bring me word again, that I may come and worship him also. And when they had heard the king, they departed, and lo, the star, which they saw in the east, went before them, till it came and stood over where the young child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceeding joy. And when they were come to the house, they saw the young child with Mary his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented unto him gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And being warned of God in a dream that they should not return to Herod, they departed into their own country another way. So they come to see Herod. Where's the king? Well, I'm the king. No, where's he that is born the king? We know about you, Herod. You shouldn't be here. and they did. And this would have been a major thing for Israel. All of Israel, all of Jerusalem would have been abuzz as a result of these wise men coming. Probably there were not just 3, more than likely. These men were Persian kingmakers. These were very high-class people. These were people who had more power and influence probably even than the king himself did in Persia. So it's not just 3 men traveling alone. These men would have come with all the pomp and circumstance of royalty as they're making their way. And so they're bringing cooks, they're bringing servants, they're bringing armies. They're coming with a full royal display as they're coming into town. And this would have been really unsettling because just 40 years previous, a lot of people's lifetime, Israel was the center stage for a major battle with Persia. And so people are just kind of on edge still at this period of time. And so as they come into town, they're looking for the one who is born the king. They know Herod's an Edomite. He shouldn't be on the throne. He's a usurper. We want to know the real king. Well, once he finds out that there's another king that's been born, now he's a threat, obviously, and we know the story. Herod wants to kill him. And so he inquires, now, when did you see the star? Well, about 2 years ago. They would have figured it out and stuff like that, about 2 years ago. And so Herod's just covering his bases. And it says when they come to Bethlehem finally and they find Mary and the child, it says, well, he's called a child and he's in the house. Well, that makes perfect sense if you understand that the manger where he was born is just right next door to the house. That's not that hard. And the inn was the room above the house. So they're just inside. That's all. They haven't even changed locations. They're just in a different room of the building that Jesus was born in. And so let's keep going here. So they leave and they go a different way. Herod gets upset. But here it says, when they were departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeareth to Joseph in a dream, saying, arise, take the young child and his mother, flee into Egypt. Now, I've sometimes wondered, and it was pointed out to me this week, I've sometimes wondered, well, they brought gifts to him, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. What happened to the gold? I mean, because Jesus wasn't exactly rich, right? And Joseph and Mary were pretty poor the entire time bringing Jesus up. Where did that go? This helps us understand what happened to the gold. Have you ever tried to travel with a child? Traveling's expensive, period. But have you ever tried to go with a child? It doesn't get any cheaper. And here they are. They have to leave right now. Now, where is their house? Their house, Joseph's house, is in Nazareth, a week's journey the other direction. So it's not like he can go and pack up. We have to go now, and we have to go down to Egypt. So they have to meet up with the next caravan going through and ride along. And then while they're in Egypt, they have to provide food along the way. All of their needs they have to pay for. And they're going to have to pay for lodging however long they're there. And there's just all sorts of expense. That gold got spent up pretty fast on that trip to Egypt and back. And so they're fleeing into Egypt. It says, I'll bring thee word, for Herod will seek the young child to destroy him. When he arose, he took the young child and his mother by night, departed into Egypt, and was there until the death of Herod, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken of the Lord by the prophet, saying, out of Egypt have I called my son. Now, so we're in Hosea 11. I had you turn there, if you're still there. Now, this is really interesting, because in this particular passage, if you're just reading Matthew, you would think that was a specific prophecy about Jesus, because it almost seems like it. But when you read in Hosea 11:1, watch what it says. It says, when Israel was a child, then I loved him and called my son out of Egypt. Now, who does God say in Hosea he's talking about? He's talking about Israel. Well, that's pretty interesting. Well, why does he say that? And verse 2, and as they called them, so they went from them. They sacrificed unto Baalim and burned incense to graven images. Well, what in the world is going on here? Why does Matthew apply that phrase to Jesus? I don't know. No, I'm kidding. So Isaiah uses the name Israel to refer to Jesus on a couple of different occasions. And what's going on here is Israel was called out of Egypt to be a light to the world, to be God's servant. Is that what Israel was? Did Israel fulfill that? No. And so Jesus is going to fulfill what Israel as a nation failed to do. He is going to be the light to the Gentiles. He is going to be the perfect, ultimate servant of Jehovah. And so this prophecy is applied to Jesus because Jesus is going to fulfill that where Israel failed to do it themselves. And so he says, out of Egypt have I called my son. Then Herod, when he saw that he was mocked of the wise men, was exceeding wroth, and sent forth and slew all the children that were in Bethlehem and all the coast thereof, from 2 years old and under, according to the time when he had diligently inquired of the wise men. Then was fulfilled that which was spoken by Jeremiah the prophet, saying, in Ramah was there a voice heard, lamentation and weeping, and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children, and would not be comforted because they are not. Now this I thought was interesting because here it says Rachel. Where do we know Rachel from in the Bible? Because this is coming out of Jeremiah, and it's kind of a double prophecy. So Rachel was somebody's wife in the Old Testament. Anybody remember? She was a favorite. One of 2 and 2.5. Why? 2 3/4 wives, I guess you could say. 2 wives, 2 concubines. Jacob, very good. Jacob hated Leah and he loved Rachel. Now, Rachel has 2 children, Joseph and Benjamin. You say, well, now what is the significance of that? Okay. The prophecy comes from Jeremiah 31 in verse 15 and 16 is where the prophecy comes from that's mentioned here. And what's going on is it's in the context of the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom being taken captive. So the northern kingdom of Israel is going to be sent basically dispersed and annihilated by Syria, and they will be no more. Now, the significance there is Joseph had a son named Ephraim, right? And Ephraim was the name that is often applied to the northern kingdom in the Old Testament. So once the northern kingdom is eliminated, that is going to cause Rachel, the grandmother, weeping. It's kind of the picture that is being portrayed there. Now, her other son, Benjamin, his tribe resides in the southern kingdom of Judah, which is going to be taken captive to Babylon. And so, once they're eliminated, that again causes Rachel weeping. That's the imagery that's being used here. And Ramah is a town that essentially is split right down the middle and rests on the border of both kingdoms. So it's representative there in both of those. And so this is reference to the fact that Israel is being eliminated. So this is kind of a picture that Herod coming in, killing these children that are born, is kind of reminiscent of when the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom are dispersed and taken captive. Now, but when Herod was dead, behold, the angel of the Lord appeareth in a dream to Joseph in Egypt, saying, Arise, take the young child and his mother, and go into the land of Israel, for they are dead which sought the young child's life. And he arose and took the young child and his mother and came into the land of Israel. Now, it's about, at a normal pace, 11-day journey from the southern border of Israel to get into Egypt proper. So, if you're in a hurry, I'm sure you can make the trip a little bit faster than that. So, you're every bit of 11 days from Bethlehem to get into Egypt. So, you're looking at round trip 2.5 weeks-ish, 2.5, probably close to 3 weeks is going by here. And who knows how long they were in Egypt. We don't know that for certain. But then here, Luke 2, when the days of her purification, according to the law of Moses, were accomplished, so this would have been 33 days after the circumcision, according to Leviticus 12, verse 2. So this is 41 days after his birth when this is taking place. So this is probably a little over a month. So those wise men, more than likely, came prior to this. Of course, there's people that disagree. That's fine. Everybody's entitled to be wrong. No, I'm kidding. I shouldn't say that. If you're just going with what the Bible says, the wise men came before this point. But what a lot of people do is they'll add an extra trip, that they go to Nazareth, and then there's another trip back to Bethlehem at some point, and that's when the wise men show up. That's the only way to make it work. But there's no scriptural record for that. So the days of purification, according to the law of Moses, were accomplished. They brought him to Jerusalem to present him to the Lord. As is written in the law of the Lord, every male that openeth the womb shall be called holy to the Lord, and to offer sacrifice according to that which is said in the law of the Lord, a pair of turtle doves or 2 young pigeons. So right there, we get an indication that Joseph and Mary are dirt poor. Even though they had that gold given to them, we don't know how much, but it got spent while they were in Egypt. That's just the way it goes. And behold, there was a man in Jerusalem whose name was Simeon, and the same man was just and devout, waiting for the consolation of Israel, and the Holy Ghost was upon him. And it was revealed unto him by the Holy Ghost that he should not see death before he had seen the Lord's Christ. And he came by the Spirit into the temple, and when the parents brought the child Jesus to do for him after the custom of the law, then took he him up in his arms, and blessed God, and said, Lord, now lettest thou thy servant depart in peace, according to thy word. I can't even imagine what that would have been like. One, holding Jesus. I mean, that's just kind of like, I typically refrain from holding other people's infants, just because, like, I could break this thing. My wife had to assure me a number of times when Benai and Olivia were newborn, you're not going to break them. You're not going to break them. It's like, well, it certainly feels like it. So that would have been crazy. But then also knowing, okay, I know when I'm going to die. That would have been equally as crazy, because he was told, you're not going to die till you see this. It's like, okay, does that mean tonight now? You know, can I say goodbye to people first? Or what exactly does this mean? He says, for mine eyes have seen thy salvation, which thou hast prepared before the face of all people, a light to lighten the Gentiles, and the glory of thy people Israel. And Joseph and his mothers marveled at those things which were spoken of him. And Simeon blessed them, and said unto Mary his mother, Behold, this child is set for the fall and rising again of many in Israel, and for a sign which shall be spoken against. Yea, a sword shall pierce through thy own soul also. I mean, that certainly happened, didn't it? When did that happen? Happened when she was there at the foot of the cross, watching her son as he's being crucified and murdered. That the thoughts of many hearts may be revealed. And there was one Anna, a prophetess, the daughter of Phanuel, of the tribe of Asher. She was of a great age, and had lived with an husband 7 years from her virginity. And she was a widow of about 84 years, or 84 years old, and which departed not from the temple, but served God with fastings and prayers night and day. And she, coming in that instant, gave thanks likewise unto the Lord, and spake of him to all that looked for redemption in Jerusalem. But when he heard, talking about Joseph, that Archelaus did reign in Judea, in the room of his father Herod, he was afraid to go thither. Notwithstanding, being warned of God in a dream, he turned aside into the parts of Galilee. And when they had performed all things according to the law of the Lord, they returned to Galilee, to their own city, Nazareth. And he came and dwelt in the city called Nazareth, that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken by the prophets, he shall be called a Nazarene. And the child grew and waxed strong in spirit, filled with wisdom, and the grace of God was upon him. All right. Any questions, thoughts? I'm sure there's questions. Go ahead. Fire away.
Why was Christ called a child right when he was born? Yeah. Normally didn't until 8 days.
You know, I don't know. I was wondering that as I was reading that because John is called a child when he's circumcised at 8 days, but then it immediately refers to Jesus as being a child. Yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting. I have no idea. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Other than just child just being more of a generic term, I guess. Maybe more generic than what we affix to it, maybe. Because, I mean, the church I grew up in, it was like you were preaching against adultery. The fervency that he's a babe in the manger and then he's a child in the house. And it's like, man, if you disagree with that, you must just be out. You just must be a heretic or something like that. It's kind of the way you felt hearing that preach. And so that type, and given Wayne's response, and once that gets in your head, then it just seems, and you see, oh wait, he was called a child the moment he was born. Then that really seems really strange. But it probably wasn't nearly as strange back then as it is to us, having been through that. Anything else? Okay. We'll